You know, it's kind of like an old person in an old folks' home if they complain about their watch going missing. Why complain about a messy kitchen when it's my roommates and this is their team here? I solve my problems. Yeah. I solve I solve my problems, not complain to people. It's like it's kind of like when Dakota Access Pipeline went in and the police and the government and the big oil businesses were bringing in mercenaries, including the police as mercenaries. You can't complain to the police or the government if it's about the police that the government are using to control you. So why complain about a messy kitchen or the cigarettes or anything else? Why? Never. Just eat and wait and be patient and hope I can solve my problems and let them solve theirs. Yay. And drink chamomile in the evening. That's the secret. Welcome to Thunderstanding. This new channel is about understanding, making loud noises with your understanding, maybe even letting people know what overstanding is. Maybe not. Here's the jam. We have an entire planet called Earth. We have an evil group of people on Earth. They seem to think it's okay to set up racist and evil systems of government. One of those governments was South Africa. That was ended, that evil that they set up there. We have another one that's in the obvious eye of the public right now called Israel. In addition to that, you have to look at places like Cuba, like Madagascar, like Myanmar. You have to look at Indonesia with all those islands over there. You basically have to look at New Zealand as well. You have to look at places where people are taught to be ignorant by the people who have the knowledge, and instead of teaching them the knowledge, they teach them ignorance. An example of that is when you look at metallurgy. Metallurgy, iron, bronze, and brass and steel. If you give a man iron, it's very heavy and metal and brittle. If you give a man brass, it's lighter and it's not brittle, it bends. If you give a man bronze, it's stronger than brass, a little bit more brittle, but not quite as brittle as iron. And if you give a man steel, it's stronger than the rest and lighter than the rest, depending on what combination of metals you use. If you keep part of the world only permitted to have bronze or brass or iron, you will always prevail with your steel weapons when it comes time for warfare. Also, if there's a northern passage from, let's say, the areas we call Russia, Norway, Sweden, into Greenland and down into North America and South America, the northern passage up where the North Pole is, you don't have to cross from Russia into Alaska on the Bering Strait. There's lots of closer passages, way lots, and it's been happening way, way, way before Christopher Columbus was announced to the world. But what I'm talking about now is the modern times of magic and evil. Now, modern people like to say that science describes the world. Modern people are also the ones who, in the United States, removed plant medicine and healing people with food from the medical model in the United States during the 1950s after World War II.
at which time nearly half of the hospitals in the United States closed their doors for business or from healing. The ones that stayed open transferred to a chemical model of treatment, what we call pharmaceutical method, pills, medicine. Doctors were then taught that food and all these other remedies are no good. You have to give people a pill to heal them. Also, they began to create machines that did tests on people. The machines are very expensive and require a lot of research and development, or what is called R&D. Government tax dollars are given to universities and businesses for grants for R&D of technology. These machines are such machines. Today it might be a CAT scan or an MRI, nuclear magnetic resonance imaging. There's lots of things that call different things we don't understand. Lots of chemicals and aspects to the human biochemistry and the details, the microbiology. However, we have not changed as animals. And the reality is most of the ailments of humanity were cured with food and other methods up until about 70 years ago in the United States. Then the United States militantly forced these models upon the rest of the world, using the give and take of money and other resources and other access points around the world as ways to manipulate and control other governments and other wealthy people and other wealthy nations and other nations of great, great populations. The United States continued with monster machines and weapons of destruction and death. The truth be told, the United States was finagling to start World War II over in Europe and actually helped develop the Nazi Party and Adolf Hitler. The same people that are behind the scenes in the United States government were also the same people behind the scenes in beginning Nazi Germany. The fact of the matter is South Africa was ended. Israel needs to be ended. It's an invented place that never existed there before. Iraq and Iran are also pivotal points that were created by the colonists. And the thing is that not only is the Bible used to divide people, whether you're a Jew or a Christian, whether you're warlike or peaceful, the Quran is also used to divide people, but not based upon peace or warlike, because honestly, the human nature is to defend your family or yourself for your life. It's been manipulated into a paid skill and often forced into a murder machine lifestyle, which was existent until a few years ago when we stopped mass conscription, forcing people to join the military in the United States of America, also called the draft. It's not human nature to destroy and murder everyone, nor is it the nature of a horse to go to war. But horses are used for war, or they used to be, and they still are in some places. If you take a horse in nature and you lay on the ground, a horse generally will not step on a human being unless it's defending its home. If you're laying on the ground, a horse will avoid you and not step on you. And that's just how it is. There's a lot of things that are taught as lies and reinforced and reinforced and reinforced, and money is often used as the deciding factor. And if you go to a very poor nation and you have in a village 50 strong men, and you give 2 strong men as much money as you want to give them, those 2 strong men can run the entire area with that money. And when it comes to creating criminal activities, it's also paid for. And people often use children, and they tell the children, don't worry, you won't get any charges even if you get caught because you're underage. Now in the United States, they even use false documents to put other people in prisons and jails in their places, which requires a nice supply of, shall we say, villains or evil people in the United States to live in the communities. And I believe that's why the United States releases murderers, murderers, rapists, rapists, pedophiles, pedophiles, human traffickers, which we used to call slave traders back in the day. Now they just call them human traffickers. Sometimes they're called pimps or managers of strip clubs, or perhaps managers of traveling stripper shows. You have to understand, at the upper echelon of these sex workers, you have things like beautiful women saying, "Give me his head on a plate," like when John the Baptist's head was cut off by a king because he married, I guess, his brother's wife who had a daughter, and he thought she was so beautiful that when she danced for him, he said he'd give him anything up to half his kingdom. And he killed John the Baptist, who was a prophet of the people. And that was a bad idea. But today in the United States, that's basically what the psychiatric industry does. And that's what I'm getting at with this whole thing about magic. It's called ESP, clairvoyance, gifts of God, magic. And it's shut down in the United States using medication, usually. Sometimes murder, sometimes incarceration, and sometimes they put people in the psychiatric hospitals here in the United States. Now, I've been a victim of the system. And I grew up as a victim of the system in Reston, Virginia, which is said to be an experiment started by an artist named Robert E. Simon from New York City. I'm going to do the education for all them Reston people. There's people here in Washington, D.C. who have the same last names as some of them white people out there. Those white people were the slave master families, the master race class, the dukes and the duchesses, the royalty of Fairfax County. Lord Fairfax owned everything west of Washington, D.C., when you put it in cracker colonist terms, pig terms. Reston, Virginia was the orchards. Those were the orchards where all the good fruit was basically grown. That was Reston, Virginia. The ancient families have played a trick on everyone. There was no real Robert E. Simon who founded Reston, Virginia for some grand scheme. They were trying to figure out how to franchise the new integrated world, and they did very well. And what they did is they figured it out at a place, a lot of it called Hunter's Woods Shopping Center, which no longer exists in its original form today. But they figured out how to manufacture and basically figure out all the franchises you needed for the world. And then they destroyed it and tried to make everybody forget. Let me put it to you this way. There used to be a pharmacy there called Dart Drug. Then it closed and became Dart. And then it just closed. And guess what? It was basically like Walmart and like Target. And the symbol was actually a target with a dart in it. But the thing is once you figure it out, you cannot just open it right here. You have to open your headquarters and your franchises at different places in the country, different cities and different states. And since Reston, Virginia is the international city, with all these international diplomatic families, like those gigantic multi-millionaire homes back in the woods, that's just a few, like maybe a mile or two from, the Section 8 housing apartments. You kind of have to start using your mind to just think on this and extrapolate. Now, let's think about when pharmaceutical method was brought into the United States full force. It was when we had our first true actor as a president, Ronald Reagan. Now, what's happened is I've come back to the area. I've had my things burned multiple times. I've been incarcerated multiple times. And I've actually had a lot of mental health damage done to me on many levels. But the thing is like, I've realized who some of the fucking evil people are that I grew up around. And I realized that basically they're all part of this gigantic lie. The Nazis, they did not see anything. Did you see that? I did not see. Apartheid. Hey, why does I feel bad when he looks at me? Don't worry about it, son. Those are just his apart eyes. You'll learn how to do it too. Your eyes will keep you apart from everyone. Your apart eyes. So all these families seem to have made a mistake because they didn't include me, and now I'm back in the area and they tried to shut me down on every single fucking way they could. And I guess maybe I died recently and came back to life. Anyways, some of my old classmates serve in Congress or other upper levels of society, technology companies like the first internet company, the first widespread, wide-use internet, AOL, founded in Reston, Virginia. So let me just give y'all a hint. You can't run the world based upon lies and deception and evil and magic anymore. And because you did what you did to me, now what's happening is the magic and all that's turning against you. And when one of you said that my God does not exist because I prayed a lot and posted a lot about it online, it's everyone's God. It's the same God worldwide. There's one God, you totally dummies. And the thing is, it's just many different names, many different religions. My invitation to be with God came from Jesus. Who gave you your invitation to meet God? And when, if ever, will you meet God? And have you met God? Hey, goodbye.